Future Blockchain Summit. We are here at the exchange stage. I really hope that you had a lot of fun today and yesterday, and I really hope that you already visited a lot of insightful conversations. I'm sure that our next one will also give you a lot of insights, and it will also give you a better understanding of blockchain technology. I'm really excited that today we're going to talk about, and we have representatives from management team from different protocols. And they will definitely share with you lots of information, how the technology works and how, in this case, it can benefit you. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm Maria Vovchok. I'm ambassador at Finoverse, or you might have heard as Finovasia. I'm also ambassador at Blockchain Association of Ukraine, and I am very often MC and moderator at blockchain conferences. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited to talk about technology in UAE. For this, I'm really happy to have our amazing panelists. So please give a big hand to Farkhad Shagulyamov, CEO at VELAS Network. Give him a big hand. Please take your seat. Yes, we also really happy to have Alex Davis, founder and CEO at Mavryk, ex-CIO at Tezos. I'm also happy to invite on this stage Arto Bendiken, STO at Aurora Labs, Near Protocol. Please give him a big hand. He's actually, I saw that he was somewhere here. I'm sure that he will shortly join our conversation. And Arto, if you can hear me, please come on stage. We're waiting for you. And last but not least, please give a big hand to Rhett, Oudkerk, CEO at Zaisan and EOS Network. EOS Network Foundation. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Once again, our speaker, Arto, is about to join us, and we will start. Let's start from this. As I said earlier, we're going to discuss UAE, a sandbox from Web3 innovation. But before we'll also jump into this topic, as far as you're representing here, really exciting technologies. So we have VELAS Network, we have Tezos, we have EOS. Soon we will also have Near Protocol. Quick question, if your grandmother, for example, not a kid, but grandma, who, for example, has never heard word blockchain or Bitcoin or Web3. So they maybe maybe they heard these words, but they don't exactly know where do you work. So how would you explain to your grandmother, what are you working on? In a few words. Who would like to start? Farkhad.
So how I always try to explain this to people that don't really understand blockchain technology is that we're building essentially software for applications to be built. And transition Web 2, Web 3 is, you can just look at Web 2 as being internet and then different applications that are being built on it. And then what we're doing with blockchain is kind of the same thing. But in Web 3, you have decentralized applications where systems of control and records are different. So I guess what you just say, we're making a new type of internet, a new type of software for applications to be built on.
Okay, Alex. What will you answer in this case? Switch it on. Huh?
Hello? Okay. Honestly, I always love to quote John Oliver on this one, where blockchain is basically everything you don't understand about computers mixed with everything you don't understand about money. So, but I think, honestly, Farhad summed it up pretty nicely. It's just a new back end for interacting with the web, where, in a sense, where the websites own all of your data, now you can take control of you can essentially monetize and commodify a lot of the assets that you normally couldn't do before. So,
okay, Rhett?
Yeah, I always say just the internet of value, the internet of transactions. Right now, you can't easily email somebody some money, and on the Web3 ecosystem, you will be able to email somebody some money without using a bank or without using an intermediate, and that disintermediation, that is very key, I think, in Web3. There's some other words that always pass by when you talk about Web3. Communities is one of them. So we're creating fanboys, communities of protocols, of applications. It's all indeed about technology, software, very different than before, architected very different than before, and it's about money, about financing, different financial structures, and things like open source. Before was very difficult to finance, and with Web3, you will see different financing models based on tokens.
By the way, Rhett, please update us because I believe so that for someone who, for example, has heard about EOS, I'll ask you in a different way. What changes have you gone through, taking into account, like we have heard what was happening in 2017 and how there was a great about this great announcements. In this case, one of the, let's say, the most notable ICOs in the history of the ICOs. What has happened afterwards? Because so many things. Then afterwards, I didn't actually hear a lot of news about EOS. So what else is happening inside?
Yeah, so many people came by the booth. We're just here. I say EOS. Wasn't that dead? No, it was the biggest ICO.
Well, I didn't say it was dead, but
but
the news were like there were
said
no
that.
news.
People came to us and asked us. No, it was the biggest ICO ever. Done by Block One. Block One promised a lot and never delivered. And one of the things that they also did was every time somebody of the community took an initiative, they basically said, we don't support that initiative, or we were planning to build the same. And that took out all the energy from the community. So it really drained the community in the last 3 years. And a year and a half ago, we kicked out Block One. We stopped the unstaking contract, so they're no longer getting paid. We're studying to sue them because what they did we consider fraudulent, and we self-organized. So the whole community of block producers, global block producers, dApps, etc., we started to organize. We wrote all kinds of vision documents called blue papers, and we started to build that vision. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit more later, but we really started to build that vision. And as of a month ago, we also started to do trade shows again to really tell the world that EOS not that we're still here. You can build on EOS. And that is currently being done. There's a lot of sister chains that use the same software. The software is called Antelope. Wax, for example, the most used blockchain in the world, is using that protocol, that software.
Thank you, Arto. Thank you so much for joining us. Arto from our Aurora Labs, Near Protocol. Quick question. So maybe you haven't heard. If, for example, somebody from your relatives, like let's say your grandma or your grandfather, would ask, what kind of technology you're working on, how would you explain it to them?
Well, usually I say magic internet money.
Just switch it on.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Usually I say magic internet money. I don't actually attempt to explain that too much. If I need to go into details, I'm going to say that it's similar to what happened with email. That imagine if you could just send money over the internet. But then of course you have the difficulties that PayPal exists and so on. So I don't actually try to explain to grandparents myself.
Okay. Then next question: how would you, in this case, like throughout the years, when the founders of different protocols, one of their major goals, what I hear all the time at different conferences or when they're doing presentations, is to reach 1 million transactions per second. So is it an ultimate goal, or is it something more important than only TPS? Arto.
To reach 5 million transactions per second?
Yes, 1 million transactions per second.
Okay. It's not something that we are currently concerned with, but we are building on a technology that will enable that eventually. But it's pretty far out in the future. We are not seeing that kind of use right now.
Okay, but if, for example, is it still a goal, or is it like some more important things, for example, Near Protocol has in mind? What exactly is your ultimate goal, let's say, as a protocol?
Right now, our goal is to go after Web 2 users, as in as far as we can tell, there's about few tens of millions of Web 3 users, and there's far more Web 2 users. So we are going after them. There's enough people going after the Web 3 user base. So that means usability mostly, because blockchain is not very usable for grandparents.
Okay, by the way, Alex, in your case, how does it work? What do you believe? What's the most important from the prospect of you, of your personal perspective?
Yeah, I think TPS is a completely non-relevant figure. There's this obsession with TPS and trying to beat Visa.
Yes.
Visa does. People keep talking about doing 20,000 TPS to beat Visa's capabilities. In reality, they do about 5,000 with spikes during certain periods.
Yeah.
It's astoundingly not a relative figure today. And what you were saying is that it's all about users. Your throughput doesn't matter if you have 5 people using it. So if you look at Cosmos and Tezos, Cosmos touts 10,000 transactions per second, but in reality, what have they done in the last 30 days? They did 2 transactions a second.
Oh, okay.
So your throughput means nothing if you have no users. It's like having Sheikh Zayed Road, but like 5 cars.
Okay. How are you working on community in that case? Because obviously the question of building a community is one of the most important. So how do you do that?
I think it all starts, every blockchain essentially at its, regardless of what everybody wants to tout to claim, every blockchain has a centralized entity behind it that pushes it forward in some capacity. A founder, a community that groups together
Management
in some
team,
collaborative way, a foundation, for example. The idea that the founders and the teams are all developer focused and not, or toxic. If you look at, for example, the layer ones that have all started post Ethereum, the ETH killers, so to say, back in the day, they've astoundingly failed to actually build bigger than their own fishbowls. So Ethereum is one big network effect, and that same money trickle down economics moving forward. All those layer ones have basically failed to cross the chasm into mainstream adoption. So if you just focus completely on developers, they're eccentric to not medically diagnose them with anything else, and if you build an internal ecosystem that is toxic at its core or autistic at its core, you're never going to break out into a user base that really needs simplicity. So look at Apple, for example. It made things simple and intuitive for people to use. This is where we get to usability. If you keep thinking that everybody has to have their seed phrase or else, it's a terrible way to go forward. And there's so many different ways: smart contract wallets, MPC, single sign-on. All of this you need to think about the end user and not about spec sheets.
That is true. But Farkhad, in your case, what is the core value, for example, for the VELAS network? Is it again about the speed? Is it about scalability? How does it work in your case?
So yeah, speed and scalability is important, but I agree very much with the guys that speed and scalability, it has to be for a concrete use case, right? So right now we are probably the fastest blockchain and the fastest EVM, and we're pushing close to 100,000 transactions, but that's not really relevant at the moment because there's no such use cases. But we are working with partners that have a vast amount of user base. So traditional companies in Web 2, in gaming, in the movie industry, in the motorsports industry that have really potential to fill up these transactions, these blocks. So what we focus on is, okay, scalability, security, and all the blockchain parameters we have to keep in mind. But VELAS's goal is to unify all the other blockchains to help them unload, because like Ethereum, this is the biggest community for developers and the most dApps, but it's very slow. So we also are EVM compatible. So we want to have all the other chains using kind of one system that can connect to everything else. And that's the only way you can build Web3.
Yeah, that is true. But also, how are you building, in this case, community? Because one of the most important thing is really to have a lot of end users. So can you please maybe share some of your marketing tools or something like that? How do you work on that?
So Yeah, or if you want to go ahead.
No, I was gonna say you guys sponsored Ferrari, so every time one of their cars catches fire in one of the races, you guys get a lot of screen time.
Yeah, that as well. So I mean, yeah, through big partnerships, exposure. But the reason why we do these big partnerships is to develop concrete products. And we want to convert the non-users into users by giving them real-life usable applications that are not forced upon them, that is something that's inherently natural, that brings them closer to their communities and to their goals.
Rhett, let's talk about right now the US community, as you said, because right now you have to build it probably, I wouldn't say from scratch, but you have to revive the community. How are you doing this right now?
Well, funny thing, people come back automatically. When the EOS Foundation was established, several people were hired, and these people were able to hire the software developers of Block 1. So we basically got everybody back into the ecosystem. And last week there was Singapore 2049. I wasn't there, but I saw the pictures and I said, hey, Tiago from EOS Rio is there, and Myra from EOS Asia is there. And so it's very funny to see that the passion that was 4 years ago around EOS and the strength of the community it was at that time. There's a lot of people that left, but they still have their heart in the right place, so they're coming back. And so that's a good thing. Few remarks on your TPS discussion. Yes, if you don't have the volume yet, then TPS is not very important, and getting customers is more important. The WAX ecosystem has those use cases, 13 million accounts, Alien Worlds, and a few of those games are really pumping up the whole blockchain, and 4,000 complex transactions per second. And then the hardware architecture is getting limited, so you have to architect new hardware, and TPS is important. So WAX is the number one, and we're trying right now to scale that and find all kinds of interesting and clever ways to really scale that up, because TPS for us is a problem right now.
I see. Arto, I would like to jump to near protocol. I know that in your case, you're not exactly working on the building community. You have specific your goals. But I have been observing as well near protocol and general near foundation, how they're actually building quite a good and big ecosystem. But also, can you please dwell upon how they are doing this? I'm sure that you might have discussed this. This is one thing. And the other one, what are, in this case, when you're building the community, what major use cases for businesses you're offering?
Well, let's level here. The user acquisition story in blockchain is much as Dubai's or the UAE's. For the UAE, it's zero taxes. It got a lot of us interested and moving here, and then we found something else to stay for. In blockchains, there's a lot of deeply capitalized entities. Some of them represented here, who basically give out free money to projects that will build on their chains, and with the hope that those developers will stay. So
yeah, I heard even like a couple of projects here, they were actually fighting for the grant from NEAR, and actually some of them get quite successful.
Yes, and so the grants programs, I think that the reality of the grants programs in many cases is that you try to shovel money out the door as quickly as possible. So that's just the current reality of blockchains in many cases. Now, I'm not involved in that myself. I'm on the technology side. But in terms of what kind of use cases we are looking for right now, well, with the bear market, we've pretty much shifted to looking at Web 2 instead of Web 3. So business development is soliciting some interesting cases for us. I believe right now we are looking at games as one category.
So you're trying, in this case, gamify from like let's say traditional gamify developers. You want to attract them into Web3 ecosystem, right? How do you do that?
I didn't quite catch that. Can you repeat, please?
So the question is, as you said, is, for example, one of the examples is gamify. So you're trying to get like traditional developers, gamify developers, to invite them and build games in the metaverse, right?
Right.
Okay, can you please dwell upon this and tell us more? Maybe some of the examples as well. That would be interesting.
Well, the most important thing is for us now that we are pursuing such a path, is that there must not be any kind of poor user experience. So there must not be any situation where you are going to prompt the user to save a seed phrase or confirm the 13th word from the seed phrase. So what we are doing is something called progressive onboarding. This is pretty well supported with the NEAR protocol. So initially, a user of a game would indeed not even know that there's a blockchain on the back end. However, over time, say that he captures some value in that game, he might wish to realize this value somewhere else. He might wish to take self-sovereign control over this value. At that point, then, there would be a progressive onboarding experience, which indeed gives him full control of his assets. Does that make sense?
Well, that definitely does. Here we have representatives of, let's say, can you call your blockchain high-performance blockchain, right? What the biggest myths you have heard about your protocols you would like to debunk right now? Alex, about Tezos. Or would you like to confirm some of the myths? I'm really curious.
I really feel like there are times when it is prudent to plead the fifth.
Okay. Well, this is actually, everybody's expressing your opinion, your experience, so you're allowed to do that. I really want you to share like more personal experience working on these protocols, because you can actually like tell us how it is like to be inside your skin. Let's say it like this. I would like to know, for me, Arto, how are you in this case? How are you building protocol? Alex, how are you been working on, in this case, what are the major goals from CIO, Chief Innovation Officer? So I would like to know, for example, what is going inside. If, for example, you have heard something, people are talking about protocols, I would like you to say, oh, no, this is wrong, or this is right. So what is wrong and what is right?
I think it all comes down to how we approach either building communities and treating enterprise and treating users and balancing the technology with the onboarding of users. I think there's a really big push right now, especially on layer 2s, and with all due respect, but not to Aurora, but specifically the Ethereum ecosystem.
Yes.
You have like one layer 1 who's like in its time was glorious, but now is outdated.
Yeah, and we definitely need
to upgrade for the most part, and the merge is not an upgrade. Like like at Tezos, we've been running proof of stake for 5 years. Like they're half a decade behind on this technology. So it's now you've got like what 10 something layer 2s that have built for Ethereum, and each one is a secluded island from each other. And then you've got wobbly bridges, or like shaky bridge. I mean, like literally the bridge between Crimea and and Russia is more secure than bridges bridging between L2s or layer 1s.
By the way, I'm really sorry, because we were supposed to have here representatives of layer 2. Unfortunately, they couldn't come. But I would love to have them here, because I would love them to hear what you have to say about layer 2s.
Well, we did in Davos. He was there for Davos, but
yeah.
It's you essentially ended up building like these secluded islands off from a chain that's not good. So you need to have a good base layer chain, which, by the way, props to NEAR for having. But with Ethereum, you don't have that. Then you've got secluded islands again. So what you really need to end up having, again, from a user perspective, both on scalability and speed, where it is important, is that you need to have a good, secure base layer. Perhaps have the layer 2s build out for that for interdependent use cases. So you can have a layer 2 for gaming, a layer 2 for DeFi or open finance. I'm trying not to use the word DeFi anymore. Layer 2s for, even just like Instagram on its own layer 2, for example. So a bit of a Cosmos model, but they need to interoperate with each other natively to the point where the developer perspective and the user perspective, it's one monolithic blockchain across the board again. So you're not building on Aurora or Arbitrum or Optimism. Tezos is about to get a layer 2 as well. You're building on this one infrastructure. You build on AWS. I've never heard someone come to me and say, so guys, we're building on AWS and we picked the best servers in Ireland. Screw the ones in like South Africa. No, I mean, no one really thinks like that. It's not a thing. You're building on one unified platform, and that's really you have to treat it from a user perspective.
Thank you, Rhett.
Yeah, what we do is we really believe in inter-blockchain communication, and we are building fast finality in parallel. It's currently being built by the same team.
Is it like your biggest myth?
No, it was a promise in the original white paper that was never delivered.
Okay.
And now we're building that. So then you, as a result for the user, is that it doesn't matter where your NFT is or your tokens is, or if you have wrapped Bitcoin on a chain or you have your NFT somewhere, you want to send it to somebody else, the wallet takes care of it. He knows where it is and he knows where the other person is. And inter-blockchain communication makes that possible. And with fast finality within 3 seconds, it's the same way you do your PIN transaction anywhere. You tap your telephone or your card and it's done. Yeah, the whole experience, blockchain Web3 should be a transaction-based, where I told it the internet of transactions, the internet of value. So it needs to have the same experience as the current payment systems. It's like you put your signature somewhere, you do a payment transaction. So the whole experience needs to be very fast, very quick. And that's why fast finality is very key to do inter-blockchain communication. Then you can have your
because in this case, like you can do kind of like big amount of transactions per second, but when it's finalized, that's the one of the biggest like
so if you have like to get 1 million transactions per second, the only thing you need is 1,000 chains of 10,000 transactions per second. It's
so
very
in
easy.
case of EOS, you have heard about ZK rollups, optimistic rollups, and other like layer 2. What is your opinion regarding layer 2 protocols?
Yeah, we build all this on layer 1. We build everything on layer 1. Just make it connect everything with inter-blockchain communication and fast finality.
Okay.
Very simple.
Thank you, Farkhad.
Yeah, so
the biggest myths you have heard about VELAS network that you like to debunk?
I don't know what the myths are. I try not to listen to a lot of gossip. We just try to put our head down and build. But I do agree that blockchains right now, they're like separated islands. And the whole point of VELAS is to try to
how
put
to
everybody
bridge them
together,
properly.
Right? Yeah, in terms of finality, we already have 0.4 second finality. And in terms of layer 2, we are layer 2 for Ethereum, and we're layer 1 on our own using Solana chain code base, which is using a different programming language. So the whole point, and I do agree that the bridges and the seamlessness is not quite there yet in the whole industry. There's been a lot of hacks, there's been a lot of problems, but then cybersecurity and the way you structure your security data points is very important. You'd be surprised to see how a lot of these companies holding other people's money is not taking care and not putting the proper procedures in place. We work quite closely with our partners from the cybersecurity companies all over the world, and security for us is very, very important. And so we basically try to unify all the blockchains and bridge Web 2 to Web 3 and try to educate people and have the systems and the software and the hardware that's powerful enough to run everything. And our stuff works right now, right? So we do, even on the Ethereum side, we do almost 40,000 transactions a second. And as I said, our finality is already under 0.4 seconds, right?
Yeah, thank you, Arto. What's your view in this case? What's the biggest myths you have heard somebody who has heard for like talking about Near Protocol, and how the myths you like to debunk?
I really don't pay attention to that. I don't have the time and energy. I don't know. You must know that in the blockchain space, the Twitter comments, Reddit comments, and the like, they are absolutely toxic. Just thousands of so bad comments that you couldn't receive them legally in this country.
But I'm sure that you have something to say. If you're maybe what do you read Reddit?
Yes, I do.
Jitter notifications. Which one better for you? Discord. Which one is your favorite?
Well, Discord I try to avoid. Telegram I try to avoid.
Okay, but if
noise environments. But what I would offer instead is a final comment on the TPS matter.
Yeah.
So TPS only matters if you're building on technology which isn't able to scale at all. So for example, the original Ethereum, 1,000 transactions a second. Well, you have no future, right? So beyond that, as soon as we are all building on technologies that have a plausible path towards some level of scalability that's usable, then that becomes much less of a concern. So that certainly is a red herring these days.
Okay, but what's your views still on layer 2?
Well, layer 2 has become a buzzword. So I've seen that a lot of projects use that as a marketing term now. So it's no longer about the technological meaning of layer 2. It's become just a marketing term. We are also an L2. I do believe actually that we had some marketing staff at Aurora. They're no longer with Aurora, who indeed marketed Aurora as an L2, which may or may not be the right thing to do. So I think it's mostly meaningless as a term at this point.
Okay, now we have here two representatives of two proof of stake protocols and two proof of delegated proof of stake. So my question is, who among you were like supporting Bitcoin maximalists in the past, back in their back earlier future?
I don't support any maximalism.
Sorry?
I don't support really any maximalism whatsoever. I think it's a toxic wasteland, whether it's religion or tribalism or technology.
Okay.
Is the question to admitting to having been a Bitcoin maximalist?
Yes.
I will admit.
Okay, so my question is, because still we have here proof of stake and delegated proof of stake for protocols. Because I was here, I was listening to these debates like for many years, and it's still interesting actually to get different points of view. If like about Bitcoin mining, one of the biggest issues that if, for example, Bitcoin mining because of energy consumption, that's the biggest issue. That's why proof of stake is better. But if Bitcoin mining is using, for example, renewable energy sources, would you still believe that in this case, specifically proof of work is the best consensus algorithm to keep a layer 1 really secure, really decentralized, and in this case, the true blockchain? Is it true or not?
The majority of 51% attacks that have occurred on blockchains are on proof of work.
Yes, but recently, I also liked the comments by Emin Gan-Sirer when he, after the merge, he tweeted and he commented on Vitalik's Buterin tweets that right now for proof of stake, it's enough 34.5% for attack. Is it right or wrong? He texted, like he tweeted, like in response to after the announcement of merge, right now the proof of stake, in this case protocol, can get it's not 51% is not already, you don't need it. It's enough 34.5% for proof of stake.
In order to actually buy up that amount, you'd have to have an extraordinary amount of money, and you'd be buying up the entire order book, and it makes it almost, again, economically unfeasible to do such a thing. But to the earlier part of your question, when it comes to if Bitcoin is using renewable energies, like one, there's a couple plays to this. Is one, no, I still think it's a dramatic waste of energy that you could be using for anything else. Just because it's renewable doesn't mean that you can't be better utilized. Another thing is that I've had Bitcoin maxis because I belong to a group chat in Israel with a bunch of Bitcoin maxis, and they were talking about building a Dyson sphere in order to power Bitcoin in the future. And if you don't know what a Dyson sphere is, it's essentially a big kind of like structure that gets built around a star, like a physical star in space. And we like can't keep ACs on in some parts of the world, like Europe this summer, and they want to build a structure around something bigger than a planet in order to power Bitcoin. I think that's just the most insane thing I've ever heard. So proof of stake does work. It's been proven to work. It's been proven to be secure. And inflation is not a bad thing. Today's inflation in the economy is, but because it's skyrocketing. But regulated inflation is not bad in order to keep a system moving forward.
Okay, Arto, in your case, I know that NEAR, one of the major goals as well is like they really care, they have a lot of sustainability initiatives. Can you also say it from the perspective of NEAR?
Well, yes, NEAR does say that NEAR and Aurora are fully carbon neutral. But personally, I find some irony in discussing this topic in the most energy-intensive city in the world. And personally, I don't subscribe to a scarcity mindset. So this is not a topic that bothers me that much. For example, Dubai uses more than 1 billion liters of water every day, more than 300 million gallons of water every day. 90% is desalinated seawater. Meanwhile, California seems unable to do the same because they apparently don't have enough water.
But it's California.
What's that?
It's California. They can't seem to do anything right.
Right. So I think that these kind of things are solvable, and I don't much worry about that. I think we are all, or most of us, are very happy Bitcoin exists. It's effectively digital gold.
Thank you, Rhett.
Yeah, Bitcoin is digital gold. I think we need a spectrum of solutions. And for digital gold, I'm very happy that we have proof of work, and that's very decentralized, and that the architecture could revolutionize the energy sector, I think. I had some interesting debates about that yesterday with people, and I think the theory and the research of that is supporting that. And the rest of the space, delegated proof of stake, we need multiple architectures. We're still pretty much in the early stage. The fact that we are basically talking on stage about these very technical, difficult concepts means that we're not user-friendly enough. And we need to build very user-friendly tech in Web3 to get adoption. And I don't think we should talk about like consensus protocols. Leave that to the back-end technologists.
Okay, I'll ask you other question because it's also really important, because we really all the time, at the end of the day, the most important is user experience. So where, for example, where I would say we will get to the point that we can reduce user frustration and get developers joy. So developers will be happy about building the back end and, in this case, a front end, and the users will be happy. Rhett?
Well, if you look at some of the ways, the Wax Cloud wallet, for example, very user-friendly. You just click on that you want to authenticate with Facebook, and you can start trading NFTs. That same product, that same technology is going to be available on the US as well. But then, how do you pay for it? For a very long time, that has been difficult. At least for 2 years, there were no easy on-ramps payment-wise. There was not a credit card company supporting the exchanges to make it very easy to purchase. Now that step was set as well. So very slowly on, all the barriers that really mass adoption would create are being taken away. And yeah, give it another 2 years and it's very user-friendly, I think, Web3.
Yeah. Farkhad, Alex, who wanted?
I think we need to separate between users and developers, and the layer ones or twos typically tend to think like, oh, we need to bring more developers. We get more developers. We get more projects. We get more projects. We're gonna get more users.
I find so many as well requests to bring more developers communities into the ecosystem, right?
Right, but you need to separate between a developer ecosystem and a user ecosystem. If you look at what Apple does, they have advertising and campaigns and conferences specifically that target users. And they also have WWDC, Worldwide Developers Conference, that targets developers. And there's some users in there because the Apple community tends to be a bit geeky with things. But they tend to separate between the users and devs. And you need to give devs all the tools and resources to build easily, all the APIs, all the SDKs, everything, centralize that in one place. And I think a lot of layer ones tend to think like, oh, we're a decentralized ecosystem, therefore we shouldn't have one place to just house all this. You can gather that information and give them an easy experience. For users, you need to get rid of private keys. Everything else that they also said as well, but before you run out of time. Yeah.
Yeah, so for developers, I think we just need to give them the right environment, give the right tool sets and so forth, and scalability and possibility for them to jump from other chains that are not very efficient. And then for users, you need to give them things that are useful and that they will use, right? For example, we were talking about gamification. Nobody's really built interesting games that people want to play. These earn-to-play models people play because there's some inflationary model for them to get a quick buck. But at the end of the day, they're not very usable. But we are speaking to global leaders in the gaming world, and they all have an appetite for Game 3. And that's why giving them scalability and the bridge to cross into Web3, because these guys have been living in the metaverse for 15 years, right? All the online games. and all the gaming skins essentially are NFTs. So I think for users, it has to be one-click solution, something super simple, usable, and fun, right?
To add to that for one moment, in terms of like proof of stake systems and governance and people, taking part in these ecosystems, there are a lot of layer ones today that in order to actually vote or take part in validation or governance of the networks, you still have to go into the command line and essentially be a developer in order to actually take part in this, in the execution of the community, not execution of the community, of the community's execution of protocol updates and governance. And that's something like, to build on what you were saying, is that one-click solutions, you should be able to download an application, run a validator, and actually just click yes, no on a protocol update or anything else. So that's something that, there needs to be a focus on.
And just to interject on your request for no need for seed phrases, we actually built a system called the VELAS account, which is a seamless login system, much like Facebook or Google, that uses the seed phrase attached to the browser already, and that lets you log in and get paid to log in without having to remember your seed phrase, right?
Thank you. Right now, I would like to jump because we actually started talking about UAE. And one of the things, I know the majority of you are here. If I'm not mistaken, you're based here, yeah? Majority of you, not all of you. So how many also startups do we have based right now? I know that we have representatives of businesses, startups here in this room. Please raise your hands. Who are representing a startup and you're based in UAE? 1, 2, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I would say, frankly, approximately 1/4, or maybe less, but still, everybody is coming. How do you see UAE? As far as we can see, there are still quite a lot of startups. I know a lot of crypto startups here. What is the ecosystem here? Is it a very good place to grow your ecosystem and maybe attract as well developers and really attract more users on the other hand?
Let me take that one. We have 1/3 of our staff now in the UAE. That's largely the result of the Ukrainian situation. Back in February, we evacuated people from Ukraine, Belarus, Russia to Dubai mostly because of the visa regime. But nonetheless, this is quite a good place for us right now. There is a large community here. I would say it's a little bit top-heavy, as in there seems to be at the moment more VCs here than developers, but the developer community is developing as well. So I landed here myself early last year, and I've been here mostly since then. At the time, there was a significant difficulty in obtaining, say, a bank account if you were a crypto developer. So I went to one of the major UAE banks and I requested to open a business account. And the customer success team told me that after reviewing the pile of papers that I brought with me, that I had spent all night printing, they told me that we are not going to be able to pass this on to compliance, because compliance is going to flag you, because when they do Google search of you, there's going to be crypto. When they look in your LinkedIn, there's going to be crypto. When they look at your bank statement, there's going to be crypto. So that was the situation when I arrived. But of course now with the new regulations as of this year, the situation looks much rosier. And I go here to regular crypto meetups. I can recommend, for example, the Crypto Biddlers meetup.
Once again?
The Crypto Biddlers meetup. That's a weekly or semi-weekly meetup, and that has usually 50 to 100 people, many of them crypto refugees like myself from all over the world. You hear very, very interesting stories of why people move here. So I think there's a very, very nice budding crypto community here.
Thank you. Farkhad?
Yeah, I think Dubai is great. So I moved here from Switzerland, which is probably
in that case, it was considered, it's European crypto hub.
It's probably the most advanced global jurisdiction for blockchain, right? And we've been banking in Bitcoin for over 5 years. But we moved here because it's very nice lifestyle, very nice environment. In terms of project flow, I think the projects are getting better quality. Same situation us. I had 3 offices in Ukraine, Russia, and it's no longer possible for developers to be housed there. So some of these guys were moving here, some of them are elsewhere in Europe. But in general, I think the laws and regulation are changing positively. Banks are starting to work, and the capital is starting to flow. So I think this is just the beginning, and Dubai has a bright future in this industry.
Thank you, Alex. You also relocated here recently.
Yeah, I'm still in the process of moving here, actually, setting a container next week. So it's Dubai's basically, well, the UAE for the most part, is really at the forefront of a lot of different factors that kind of lead it to be a perfect storm of events for leading the way forward for crypto. So one of them is simply the government is embracing it. Like a lot of companies right now simply won't go to the United States because of like everything that is going on with the SEC or the CFTC or all these different organizations that are trying to have a monopoly over regulating crypto, and really in practicality, neither one really has their own full jurisdiction. So one, there's an embrace of crypto here. The laws happen to be amazing for taxation. How many people here are American? Okay, you live here?
Two people, okay.
You live here?
Okay,
have fun reporting your taxes. So, so you know, the taxation's actually really great here as well compared to other places in the world. In Israel, for example, you can be taxed up to 60% on tokens, which is insane. UAE sits in between, you know, the West and the East, so it's always been like this kind of like middle hub between everything, and that's growing. And then also regional stability. So you look at all these different things in the world, and especially as they're trying to diversify away from oil and diversify away from tourism, you know, London's been a financial sector, and they have, you know, they're also, a lot of the families here are Western educated, and they understand to, you know, to break forward into the future rather than be archaic.
Thank you. Rhett, would you like to relocate here?
Well, I reallocated 6 years ago to Portugal from the Netherlands, and the tax regime in Portugal was very positive up to yesterday as well.
Until yesterday, until 28%.
Yesterday the news came out that they may tax it with 28%.
So will they do that or not?
Well, I'm debating with the lawyers
Okay.
that are advising the cabinet, and the right wing is pushing for taxation. And I think all the Bitcoin nomads will immediately leave Lisboa. We already heard that rumors, and because Portugal, for example, doesn't have the flexibility, other things like we hear here. It's a very bureaucratic country, but it had no tax on crypto. It probably will not have tax on Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is officially a currency in Portugal, and currencies cannot be taxed. And if you do anything on NFTs, it will likely be taxed as an art piece.
Okay, thank you, Rhett. Last question.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you need a good real estate broker, we probably all can help you.
Just last question, very quick. You also might have heard about the metaverse strategy, which was adopted in UAE. Maybe you have also heard, everybody probably, about Ready Player One. There will be very soon the third movie, if I'm not mistaken. If you were a movie director and you would have to depict how it would be in Ready Player 3, what would you show it there for people who are right now just like starting learning more about metaverse? Arto.
Well, I don't have a plot directly at hand, but I would offer this perspective. I consider Dubai mankind's first terraforming project. People move here because of the low taxes, but I think I stayed because of the ambition. Everybody in this city is driven, ambitious, future-oriented. There are no lazy people here other than tourists. And this energy here is insane. These are the kind of reasons why I stay, and I think that you could certainly come up with any number of good plots.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Rhett.
I haven't seen the movie, but I think the metaverse and everything Web3, it feels really like the first phase of the internet, when we didn't have social media yet. We didn't have search engines even in the beginning. We're really, really, really early stage. And the killer apps simply need to be born. And if I would be a movie director, I would search for these killer apps. They're probably a very small booth somewhere here. Try to detect them, whether they are somewhere here.
Thank you. Farkhad?
So I'm not familiar with that movie either, but in general, for me, The metaverse, I told you, is more of a game instance for now, right? So you need something that unifies everything. And Dubai has a chance to do that because they're the most forward-thinking government and they're actionable. They take action and decisions very quickly. So if they allow, I don't know, in utopic world, let the developers build and just give toolkits like in a platform, let us build the metaverse in all its different parts and let them connect it all in one place.
Thank you so much. And Alex?
Also didn't watch Ready Player One, but I guess I know my evening plans now. So I'm not sold on the metaverse. I'm probably like a complete bear on it. I think it's quite detrimental for society, actually, but there are elements that it's great. I mean, we all kind of grew up playing video games, and those in and of themselves are kind of like metaverses, these open maps, Call of Duty, CSGO, etc. So they have their roles there, but I think it's a hyperinflated market that very few will gain traction and the rest will wither away.
Thank you so much. Please give a big hand to our amazing panelists, Arto, Rhett, Alex, and Farkhad. I'm Maria Vovchok. Thank you so much for coming, and please enjoy the rest of the Future Blockchain Summit. Let's take a quick picture.